It was a rainy Wednesday afternoon when Claire noticed something strange. Her 6-year-old son, Lucas, had been playing outside in the backyard when the sun had started to dip below the horizon. Normally, she would call him inside by now, but the weather had turned colder, and she assumed he'd be eager to return to the warmth of their home. She stood by the kitchen window, gazing out at the yard, but there was no sign of Lucas. She frowned and called out to him, "Lucas, come inside. It's getting late." No response. Her heart skipped a beat. He wasn't in the backyard. She glanced nervously at the door, thinking perhaps he'd already come inside. Claire walked to the living room, then the hallway, her breath quickening. There was no sign of him. Panic started to set in. She ran up the stairs, calling his name, but still nothing. As she reached the top of the stairs, her eyes darted to the bathroom door. It was slightly ajar, the light flickering inside. Claire's gut twisted, a sense of dread crawling up her spine. She approached the door slowly and pushed it open, and there he was standing in front of the mirror, his small hands pressed flat against the glass. "Lucas," she whispered, her voice trembling. Her son didn't respond. His reflection stared back at her, but Lucas was acting strange. His eyes were wide, unblinking, almost as still. His lips moved, but no sound came out. His small figure appeared to be whispering to someone, or something in the reflection. "Lucas!" Claire cried, rushing toward him. She grabbed him by the shoulders and turned him away from the mirror. His head snapped toward her, his face pale, his pupils dilated in fear. "Mom, there's someone behind you," he said in a voice that was not his own. Claire froze. Her heart pounded in her chest, and she slowly turned her head, her eyes scanning the dark room. There was nothing there. She felt a chill creep down her spine. Her breathing became shallow, and her hands started to shake. "There's no one here," she whispered, trying to steady herself. "Lucas, what's wrong?" But Lucas wasn't looking at her anymore. His gaze was fixed on the mirror again. And that's when Claire noticed something terrifying. In the reflection, the bathroom was no longer empty. A tall, shadowy figure stood just behind Lucas, its face obscured by darkness. It had a twisted, elongated shape, and its fingers seemed to stretch out toward her son. Claire's stomach lurched. The reflection wasn't just showing the mirror image, it was showing something else. Something wrong. She yanked Lucas away from the mirror and ran to the hallway. Her pulse thundered in her ears. "Get downstairs, now," she shouted. But Lucas seemed frozen, his eyes wide with terror, unable to move. Then she heard it. A soft, cold voice came from behind her, in the same direction the mirror's reflection had shown the figure standing. "Don't go, Claire," it whispered. "I'm still here, waiting." Her legs went weak, and she nearly collapsed as she turned around. The hallway was empty, just as it should have been. But the feeling was there, the presence of something else, something that had been watching, waiting. She grabbed Lucas, half dragging him down the stairs. They reached the front door, and Claire fumbled for the keys, desperate to escape. But as she tried to unlock the door, she felt a cold hand brush against the back of her neck, sending an icy shiver down her spine. "Mom!" Lucas's voice trembled behind her. "Mom, I don't want to go outside anymore." Claire turned and saw him standing in the doorway, his eyes wide and unblinking, his face pale with fear. It was like he wasn't really there. His body was present, but his soul, his spirit seemed somewhere else, trapped between two worlds. "Lucas," Claire whispered, panic rising. "Lucas, please, talk to me." And then she saw it. In the reflection of the door's glass, standing just behind Lucas, was the same tall figure from the mirror, the thing that had been lurking in the shadows. She reached for him, but the moment her hand touched his shoulder, his body jerked violently, and a strange, low voice escaped his lips, one that was not his own. "Come with me, Claire, it's time to leave." Before she could react, the door slammed shut with a deafening crash. Claire screamed, her heart sinking. She looked down at her son, and his eyes were no longer his own. They were dark, empty, like someone or something had taken control of him. The last thing Claire saw before everything went black was the reflection of herself, standing alone in the doorway. And in the mirror, The shadow figure smiled. Hours later, the police arrived at the house. The door was unlocked, wide open, but inside, there was no sign of Claire or Lucas. Only a faint smell of dampness lingered in the air, and the bathroom mirror was cracked, as if something had been slammed against it. They searched the entire house, but the only thing they found was a single photograph, one that Claire had never seen before. It showed her husband, and a small boy she didn't recognize, standing outside the house, smiling. In the corner of the photo, a tall, dark figure loomed just behind them. The search for Claire and Lucas continued, but the house remained empty, and the mirror in the bathroom, it was never quite clean again. They say it shows things if you look long enough, and sometimes, if you're not careful, the thing in the reflection might look back.